Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial, and today we're in the new Shipyards of the Delaware exhibit that was just installed on Battleship New Jersey. So you can come and visit this with any tour of the ship. We not only talk about shipbuilding on the Delaware over time, but it also specifically ends with the battleship's time in dry dock earlier this year. So some of the artifacts we collected from our dry dock time are on display here. It was important for us to collect objects from that historic event, and this was a really quick way in this new exhibit that was already under design to be able to add that in and put this stuff on display. One of the objects that we have on display is this stencil right here. The folks who repainted the ship while she was in dry dock, CCSI, or corrosion control specialists, made this stencil and then gave it to the museum after they were finished with it. And this stencil is for one of the waterline draft markers on the hull of the ship. And we're going to talk about that a little bit in this video. This stencil is just cut out of Luan plywood. They went up in a man lift. They measured the existing stencil prior to pressure washing it off. And then they were able to trace it out on a piece of Luan plywood, cut it out, put it up there, and then tape around it for when they reapplied the markings. In preserving a historic vessel like this, we usually try to keep things the way it was. Our period of interpretation is 1990, which is right at the end of the ship's active career, which is largely how we inherited the ship from the Navy. So stenciling that you see on the ship, as we repaint the ship, we try to replace it exactly identical. And that included the draft marking here at the bow. However, this particular draft marking doesn't show up in historic photographs of the ship. Photos of the ship when she was in active service, I should say. It only shows up when the ship was in mothballs. So it seems like this draft marking is something painted on the bow of the ship when she was taken into mothballs in Bremerton in 1991, specifically so they could see if the draft was changing. When a ship is in mothballs, she doesn't have a crew assigned to her. She's not getting inspected every single day. There are periodic inspections that the contractors that maintain the ship will perform. However, most of the time there aren't people on board. There are also bilge alarm systems, which we still maintain, our original mothballed bilge alarms. But there are bilge alarm systems in case the ship starts to leak. But in case you lose power and the ship starts to sink and it's not one of the days that the ship was going to be inspected, these draft marks were added as a real easy way to be able to tell if the ship is still sitting at her normal draft. Normal mothballed draft, as opposed to her normal military draft where she's much more level. Remember, our ship sits about 10 feet higher in the bow than she would in active service. So they painted this on at her new normal level, and it's supposed to be just right above the waterline. So if you start to see water covering up part of this, it's real obvious that something has happened on the ship. So even if this isn't one of the days where you're supposed to go and inspect the ship, maybe if you start to see this submerged, you might want to go and do an inspection today and see where that extra weight came from. Because 9 times out of 10, it comes from water being in the wrong part of the ship. So, my big question to you in this video is, in the next couple of weeks, our painters are going to go out and they're going to touch up some of that black boot topping that was painted while the ship was in the yard. Some of it got scuffed up when the barge was going around the ship painting the freeboard, which is now completely finished. So we're going to send some of our guys out in a little boat and they're just going to do a little bit of touch-up work should we paint over this device at the bow to return the ship to how she would have looked in 1990 during our period of interpretation. Keep in mind that the museum tries to interpret the ship's entire life, even though by and large the ship is interpreted as 1990. We do still tell the story of her entire history, including her museum era, like this part of the exhibit that talks about the ship being dry docked by the museum, and her mothballed era. So do you think it's important to maintain one of those emblems of the ship being mothballed in a very visible external spot? Or do you think it's more important to return the ship to her period of interpretation? Let us know in the comment section down below. There really is no wrong answer here, and removing this is not going to remove the museum's ability to be able to tell if the ship is sinking or otherwise has issues, because we are on board every day. We can see our draft markers. We record those relatively frequently. So we don't really need this to show if the ship is sinking or not, but it's an interesting historic emblem to have on the ship. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also from a number of other businesses and private individuals like yourselves. Your support allows us to do the maintenance projects that lead to the restoration of the ship and the installation of new exhibits like this one. You can also support us by liking, sharing, subscribing so more people find about the museum and the channel. Thanks for watching.